Napoleon Bonaparte was born in 1769 on the Mediterranean island of Corsica. When he was 9 years old, his parents sent him to a military school in northern France. In 1785, at the age of 16, he finished school and became a lieutenant in the artillery. When the revolution broke out, Napoleon joined the army of the new government. In October 1795, fate handed the young officer a chance for glory. When royalist rebels who wanted to restore the monarchy marched on the National Convention, a government official told Napoleon to defend the delegates. Napoleon greeted the thousands of royalists with a thunderous blast from his cannon. Within minutes, the attackers fled in panic and confusion. Napoleon Bonaparte became the hero of the hour and was hailed throughout Paris as the savior of the French Republic. In 1796, the Directory appointed Napoleon to lead a French army against the forces of Austria and the Kingdom of Sardinia. Crossing the Alps, the young general swept into Italy and won a series of remarkable victories. These victories crushed the Austrian troops and ended the threat they posed to France. Next, in an attempt to protect French trade interests and to disrupt British trade with India, Napoleon led an expedition to Egypt. He won several impressive victories early on. Unfortunately, his luck did not hold. His army was eventually pinned down in Egypt, and his naval forces were defeated by the British Admiral Horatio Nelson. Napoleon abandoned his army and escaped to France, where he managed to keep the reports of his defeat out of the press and returned a hero. By 1799, the title, the General, could mean only one man to the French, Napoleon. By 1799, the Directory had lost control of the political situation and the confidence of the French people. Only the Director's control of the army kept them in power. Upon Napoleon's return from Egypt, his supporters, including the Abbé Sieyès, urged him to seize political power. Napoleon and Josephine, his lovely socialite wife, set a plan in motion. Napoleon met with influential persons to discuss his role in the Directory, while Josephine used her connections with the wealthy directors to influence their decisions. The plot to take power began to unfold on November 9, 1799, when Napoleon was put in charge of the military. It ended the next day when his troops drove out the members of one chamber of the national legislature. The remaining chamber voted to dissolve the Directory. In its place was established a group of 3 executive officials called consuls, one of whom was Napoleon. Napoleon quickly assumed dictatorial powers as the first consul of the French Republic. A sudden seizure of power like Napoleon's is known as a coup, from the French phrase coup d'état, or blow of state. At the time of Napoleon's coup, France was still at war. In 1799, British diplomats assembled the second coalition of anti-French powers, which included Britain, Austria, and Russia. Its goal was to drive Napoleon from power. Once again, Napoleon rode from Paris at the head of his troops. Eventually, as a result of war and diplomacy, all 3 nations signed peace agreements with France. By 1802, Europe was at peace for the first time in 10 years. Napoleon was free to focus his energies on restoring order in France. At first, Napoleon pretended to be the constitutionally chosen leader of a free republic. It was clear to everyone, however, that he was in fact the undisputed military dictator of France. In 1800, a plebiscite, or vote of the people, was held to approve a new constitution, the 4th in 8 years. Desperate for strong leadership, the people voted overwhelmingly in favor of the constitution, which gave all real power to Napoleon as first consul. Under Napoleon, France would have order and stability. He did not try to return the nation to the days of Louis XVI. Instead, he kept many of the changes that had come with the Revolution. He supported laws that would both strengthen the central government and achieve some of the goals of the Revolution, such as a stable economy and more equality in taxation. The first order of business was to get the economy on a solid footing. The goals of the Revolution had been to make taxation more fair and lower the inflation that had crippled the economy. Napoleon set up an efficient tax collection system in which all people paid taxes, and the amount they paid more closely matched their income. Napoleon also established a national bank. Now all banking activities would be handled by the central government. Private banks could no longer operate independently and issue their own currencies, which had created confusion and insecurity in France. With the national bank managing the country's finances, the currency could be stabilized and inflation reduced. The revolution had also sought to reduce government corruption and create opportunities for people of all classes to participate in the government. Napoleon dismissed corrupt officials. In order to provide his government with trained officials, he set up lycées, or government-run public schools. The students at the lycée included children of ordinary citizens, as well as children of the wealthy. The trained candidates could then be appointed to public office on the basis of merit rather than family connections. These reforms successfully reduced corruption and improved the delivery of government services. They also laid the foundation for public education and equal opportunity in government. In terms of religion, the revolution sought to reduce the power of the Catholic Church and establish religious toleration. When Napoleon took power, however, both the clergy and the peasants wanted to restore the position of the Church in France. Napoleon therefore signed a Concordat, or agreement, with Pope Pius VII, spelling out a new relationship between Church and State in France. The government recognized the influence of the Church and acknowledged Catholicism as the faith of Frenchmen. But the agreement rejected Church control in national affairs. Church lands that had been seized during the Revolution would not be returned, and religious toleration would continue. The French government would appoint bishops, but the bishops would appoint parish priests. The Concordat was an important compromise that gained Napoleon the support of the organized church as well as the majority of the French people. Napoleon thought that his greatest work was his comprehensive system of laws, known as the Napoleonic Code. Although the code gave the country a uniform set of laws and eliminated many injustices, it actually limited liberty and promoted order and authority over individual rights. The code took away some rights that women had won during the Revolution, such as the right to sell their property. Freedom of speech and of the press, also established during the Revolution, were restricted rather than expanded. The new laws also restored slavery in the French colonies of the Caribbean, which the revolutionary government had abolished. In 1804, Napoleon decided to make himself emperor, and the French voters supported him. On December 2, 1804, dressed in a splendid robe of purple velvet, Napoleon walked down the long aisle of Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. The Pope waited for him with a glittering crown. As thousands watched, the new emperor took the crown from the Pope and placed it on his own head. With this arrogant gesture, Napoleon signaled that he was more powerful than the Church, which had traditionally crowned the rulers of France. Napoleon was not content simply to be master of France. He wanted to control the rest of Europe and to reassert French power in the New World. He envisioned his Western Empire to include Louisiana, Florida, French Guiana, and the French West Indies. He knew that the key to this area was the sugar-producing French colony of Saint-Domingue on the island of Hispaniola. In 1789, when the ideas of the Revolution had reached the planters in Saint-Domingue, they had demanded that the National Assembly give them the same privileges as the people of France. Eventually, the slaves in the colony demanded their freedom. A civil war erupted, and slaves under the leadership of Toussaint Louverture seized control of the productive colony. In 1801, Napoleon decided to regain French control of the war-torn island and restore its productive sugar industry. Although he sent 23,000 soldiers to accomplish the task, the former slaves proved to be difficult to defeat. More importantly, thousands of French soldiers died of yellow fever, a deadly tropical disease. When the expedition to Saint-Domingue was unsuccessful, and the U.S. government showed interest in buying the port of New Orleans, Napoleon recognized an opportunity to make some money and cut his losses in the Americas. He offered to sell all of the Louisiana Territory to the United States. In 1803, President Jefferson's administration agreed to purchase the land for $15 million. Napoleon was delighted. He saw a twofold benefit to the sale. He would gain money to finance operations in Europe, and he would further punish his British enemies by helping the United States become stronger and a threat to British power. After the deal, Napoleon exulted, "The sale assures forever the power of the United States. and I have given England a rival who, sooner or later, will humble her pride. Napoleon abandoned his imperial ambitions in the New World and turned his attention to Europe. He had already annexed the Austrian Netherlands and parts of Italy to France and set up a puppet government in Switzerland. Now he looked to expand his influence further. Fearful of his ambitions, Britain persuaded Russia, Austria, and Sweden to join in the Third Coalition against France. Napoleon met this challenge with his usual boldness. He rallied his troops and rode out to defeat the Third Coalition. In a series of brilliant battles, Napoleon crushed the opposition. The commanders of the enemy armies could never predict his next move and took heavy losses. His most dramatic victory came at the Battle of Austerlitz in 1805, where he defeated a much larger army. Eventually, the rulers of Austria, Prussia, and Russia all signed peace treaties with Napoleon. As a result of the War of the Third Coalition, Napoleon's proud and patriotic army had enabled him to build the largest European empire since the ancient Romans. The only European power Napoleon could not defeat was Great Britain, whose power lay in its navy. During his war against the Third Coalition, Napoleon tried to destroy the British Navy but failed. The battle took place in 1805 at Trafalgar off the southern coast of Spain. The defeat at the Battle of Trafalgar was ultimately more important than all of Napoleon's victories on land. The commander of the British fleet, Horatio Nelson, was the admiral who had defeated Napoleon's fleet near Egypt in 1799. Nelson outmaneuvered the larger French-Spanish fleet, showing as much brilliance in warfare at sea as Napoleon had in warfare on land. During the furious battle, Nelson was mortally wounded by a French sharpshooter. As he lay dying aboard his flagship, Nelson heard the welcome news of British victory. "Now I am satisfied," murmured the admiral. "Thank God I have done my duty." The destruction of the French fleet had two major results. First, it assured the supremacy of the British Navy for the next 100 years. Second, it forced Napoleon to give up his plans of invading Britain. He had to look for another way to control his powerful enemy across the English Channel. Eventually, Napoleon's extravagant efforts to crush Britain would lead to his own undoing. During the first decade of the 1800s, Napoleon's victories had given him mastery over most of Europe. By 1812, the only major European countries free from Napoleon's control were Britain, the Ottoman Empire, Portugal, and Sweden. As the map shows, Napoleon also controlled numerous supposedly independent lands, in addition to those that were formerly part of the French Empire. These included Spain, the Grand Duchy of Warsaw, and a number of German kingdoms in Central Europe. The rulers of these countries were Napoleon's puppets. Some, in fact, were his brothers and in-laws. Furthermore, the powerful countries of Russia, Prussia, and Austria were loosely attached to Napoleon's empire through alliances. Not totally under Napoleon's control, they were easily manipulated by threats of military action. The French Empire created by Napoleon was huge but unstable. It included diverse languages and ethnic groups that made it difficult to unite. Napoleon's power and military threats made these conquered peoples more conscious of their loyalty to their own nations and less willing to accept French domination. Although Napoleon brought many positive ideas from the Revolution, such as religious toleration and legal reform, he also brought French occupation troops and high taxes to pay for the costs of his empire. This created resentment and led to resistance. As a result of all these factors, Napoleon was able to maintain his empire at its greatest extent for only 5 years, from 1807 to 1812. Then it quickly fell to pieces. Its sudden collapse was caused in part by Napoleon and his massive ego.